We thought we would start. I don't need one. I use it. Back there. I thought we would start just. I kind of like to know who's in the room. So I'm just going to ask you who you are, and I know you guys are all here because you're a research professor asking you to come. But I'm just going to know who you are, and the other folks in the room. It's just kind of makes me nice. Okay, so would you just kind of just let me know who you are, and perhaps where the students where you're from, what city. And it would be helpful to kind of know who's here today. Go ahead, start with you.
All right. My name is Michael Ritter. Hi, my name is Michael Ritter, and I'm from Lake Odessa, Michigan, and it's right between Grand Rapids and
I'm from that area too. Not Lake Odessa. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Devin Sturgis, and I'm from White.
I'm Jenna Speck, and I'm from New Zealand, Michigan, so the Highland area.
I am Leah Reed, and I'm from Madison, Michigan.
I am Grace Wheeler, and I am from Owasso, Michigan. I'm Alessandra Morales, and I'm from Roseville, Michigan.
I'm Sarah Martin, and I'm from Jackson, Michigan. I'm Bailey Clark, and I'm from Grass Lakes, Michigan.
But that's one long commute.
I'm David Rawson. The reason I'm here is Randy used to be my next door neighbor in the office, and I just want to know what he's got to say.
Yeah, there was a time when we were in the social science building up on the third floor of history and sociology and psychology. And so Dr. Ross was right next to me, and I'm not wearing Dietzman, of course, as you know, but it's just kind of interesting the history that's happened with visas that are in here.
Thank you all for sharing about yourselves a little bit. I touched the HDMI cord. Okay. Hannah, like you've heard already, I am from Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then Randy, you said he's from Grand Rapids.
I'm from Grand Rapids, but I lived in Grand Rapids, and then I lived away from Grand Rapids for a long while, and I came back. I lived like in California, lived in Ludington for a while, and so I was in Sioux Center, Iowa for a while. So I've been other places, but now I'm back where I grew up.
All right. Well, we just want to say thank you for coming. We're really excited about this. We've been working on it for a while now. We just want to give a little background to kind of how this started. About a little over 2 years, I think it was, I forget if I took your class in fall or spring, but in my junior year, I took Randy's research design class that you guys are in this area now, and he thought I excelled. I mean, I liked it, but I'm glad that he felt that I excelled, at least enough to ask me to join him on this research project. So we've been working on it for a while now, over summers and next school year, and so we're really excited to be at the point where we can present some of our data.
Yes, and we're also going to present this. We also got accepted at the national, it's the North American Associations of Christians in Social Work, and they're having a convention in Cincinnati, Ohio, next weekend, and we're going to present there too. So this gave us a chance. We saw this, and we thought we should do it here too, kind of, have an opportunity to present it to practice a little bit, make sure we have everything down.
Yeah, a little plug for all the students in the room. Have big relationships with your professors. It turns into good things.
All right, so basically the objectives here, these are kind of paraphrases of some of the counsel and social work education's core competencies and practice behaviors you have to do in order for our program to be accredited. So and the major one that we really followed, so using practice experience in a scientific inquiry to improve research, teaching and scholarship, do qualitative research studies, which this is, but this last one is kind of what we're concerned about, is learning to use and translate research findings to inform and improve practice policy and service delivery, and to promote social justice, And you can add another thing that I would add to it, and be sure that we are, as teachers, make sure we're giving you the right type of information that helps you out. All right, so next, we have the whole perspectives thing. On the next few slides, we'll give you a little thing. But the idea was, we had this research question of what perspectives do BSW students have on the integration of Christianity and social work, both in the context of their current role as a student and their future careers as social worker. So we were trying to get a little bit of what happens while you're being a student, and then what happens, how is this going to affect your career. And so we thought the basic idea was to find out what students feel. And so the Faith and Research assignment, which you have a copy of, available, is kind of what was used in the class. Now you'll see when you look at it, you'll see in Appendix A1 and A2. The reason we included A2, I think we did this about 6 or 7 classes we looked at. Seven classes we looked at. The very first time I ever implemented it, what happened was that I borrowed this from somebody else, and then the next semester I taught, I thought I should ask some more questions. So the first one is, has the same elements, but the other 6 classes after that use this exact same assignment the way it's written. It never changed that much. All right, in our introduction in literature, as you can see, we found is kind of introduction, we talked about these factors. There's little attention given to the role of spirituality and religion in the life of a social worker, one researcher found. And then Sherhuff and Curran discussed that there should be an integration of these things. And they wondered in their study, what are these big BSW student perceptions of the indicators that faculty is providing. And we then kind of concluded, as we looked at some of this literature and stuff like that the problem, that there was a very limited research focus on the integration of faith learning in school or after graduation. And different research studies besides this, like Rothman said that spirituality should be part of social work practice. Another group of authors said there was students sometimes saw their career as a calling, and whatever kind of influence they had before that, in whatever in school or in somewhere else, was helpful. And then we didn't put their names up here, but I wanted to provide this because it's in our. We did a paper that they based this on. And Rockenbeck and Mayhew said, college students' spirituality helped to translate research into practice and identify that spirituality is a multifaceted quality. And one of those things they thought was to try to quest for answers of life's big questions, which research is kind of is the kind of thing we're trying to do.
No, just that as you can, with that last point on the slide, there isn't a lot of info on integration of faith into career, into education. That was kind of the whole purpose of doing this, was to add to that body of knowledge so that we can, further that, so we can better understand it, so we can have better practice.
All right.
All right, so obviously we're at Spring River University right now, so I don't have to get to the cultural aspects of the university that much. This was conducted at main campus here, so most of you understand what that is. Kind of the culture here, but for the video, and if anyone doesn't happen to know, I'll give you some fun facts. It is a small school, as you all know. There's only 1,400 students on campus. And it has off-campus sites as well, but this was just conducted at the main campus. You all know how much the Christian values here are upheld. About chapel, there's no cohabitation with dorms, we're not allowed to drink things like that. So it's not really unusual here to talk about your faith or experience things in the classroom about your faith. And kind of something that really displays that is the school's concepts. Actually, have something useful to use it for once. Three basic things that I kind of got from the concept that really express what the school is that there's a lifelong involvement in the liberal arts. That really relates to our study and the fact that it talks about lifelong. And part of our study was really trying to learn, trying to look at how students saw their integration of faith in the long term of their future career, even though they're students now. The second was the commitment to Christ as a perspective for learning, that Christ is integrated in the classroom, that we don't just use him in the Bible as facts, but we use it as a perspective for the way we look at the rest of the world. Just another aspect of our study. The third thing is the critical participation in the contemporary world, which is huge for social workers. That our whole focus of going to school is to go out and make an impact on the world, to make an impact in people's lives. And so that really relates to our student perspectives as well. And so this right here is just kind of graphic to give you a little bit idea of the next couple slides. This is kind of our methodology, very, very basic. First thing we're going to talk about is our sampling. So we're going to get into a little bit. Then we're going to talk about how we did our content analysis, our analysis of the documents that we had. Then we're going to get into my favorite part, which is the data analysis software, which kind of turned this qualitative study into quantitative data.
Okay. All right. So basically, the purpose of sampling, we chose that, and you get to the sampling part of your information. We basically chose it because its purpose because you have each part of the sampling population has a unique element. And in this case, it was everybody. Oh, I'm sorry. This was I don't remember to do this. Each element has a unique position, or a unique thing. All the students were taking the research class, and they were all doing the same assignment, and they were all doing what the assignment was about. So the purpose of sampling, you can study either an entire population or a limited group or subset of the population, which is what we're doing here. Some other authors call it a judgment sampling, because you choose study participants based on their study involvement purpose. So that kind of makes sense there. We had 100 students in those 7 classes, and we can actually give you some, we don't have a lot of extra information, but we do, in those 100 sample people, we have 89 females and 11 males. And because this class had different levels, class levels in, over those 7 classes, there were 12 sophomores, there were 55 juniors, and there were 33 seniors that took it during that time, and they were in various groups, various class levels in various classes.
And so, kind of the way the assignment went, it was pretty standard for Randy's classes. This is kind of the way he does a lot of assignments. You go home, you have your assignment, we answered the questions that were on the paper that you guys had. We came into class, we got broken into small groups where we had to discuss the answers that we had and compile them, put them on a big sticky notes put on the wall, and present them to the rest of the class. And so the answers that were presented to the class, there's a whole where the answers that eventually went into that document. So the documents that we really were analyzing were documents for each cohort. That whole class's collective answers, what they said in class about it, are what we looked at specifically. And from the perspective of a student, in one of those cohorts, it's interesting because looking back on it, this is one of those assignments that in school, it's like, oh, I have another one of these. I have another one of these integrating things into Jesus, or whatever. It's not really helpful at the time, but now being out of school, I can kind of see that that even though I didn't value it at the time, those kind of assignments were really important. And so that's something interesting that we kind of talked about a little bit. That was the purpose of it. even like as a student, even though my perspective at the time was that it wasn't very valuable to me, that in the long run there may still be value to the student. That's something we'll talk about a little later, I think. And
I basically spent my whole life in the public sector. I went to public schools.
Okay, sorry. I went to public schools. I worked for the state for 30 years in the public sector. Went to public universities. So my whole life was in the public. So when I came here to teach at Spring Arbor, it was almost like an opening of my understanding of the whole faith thing. I was a Christian during all this time, but I never actually was able to really have it on an everyday basis. And so this was really an open, for me, it was really something. I learned a lot by what the students had to say as we were doing this assignment well. So I just wanted to mention that. That's not in our paper, but that kind of came to me as I was standing up here.
yeah, and I, kind of on the other side of the spectrum, I went to a Christian K-12 school, and obviously here to Spring Arbor for college, so I kind of have the opposite perspective of being in Christian education for a long time. So I think that gave us an advantage when we were looking at the data to kind of have competency in kind of both sides of that culture. All right, so the next part we want to talk about is our actual analysis. What did we actually do with the data that we originally had?
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanics of how we got to it. In our paper, we talk a little bit about, and we take some sources and talk about, a little bit about content analysis, which can also be document analysis. It's kind of the same thing. And it becomes, what's the aspect of that? Well, basically, when you do this, you have to determine what documents, images, artifacts, and they do this not only with what we do it, but I've seen it with TV shows and messaging, messages and all kinds of things they use this for. But basically, we tried to have some structure to it, and so we kind of took in the master's class that I teach in the foundation that we have at MSW. We have a 2-year and a 1-year program. We have our research class in the foundation program in the first year of their 2-year program. And I have this textbook by a couple of authors named Glenn Scott. And they talk about what's in a document analysis. And so I'm just going to just go over these real quickly so you have some sense of what are the factors that go into it. You identify a population of documents or other textual sources. You determine the unit of analysis. You select a sample of units. You design coding procedures for the variables to be measured. You test and define the coding procedures. And you can also do statistical analysis. So you can get that detail. But we kind of did kind of the first 4 things, of those 6 I just mentioned in our process. And we also, on our paper, have an appendix of an author who does content analysis, and it has a whole big, it describes some of these things in more detail. And we use some of that aspects. Well, we didn't use every aspect of that analysis, but we used some ideas on it to come up with ours. And that's, have to be fair to cite people. This was Neuendorf, 2002. She had a flow chart that was really helpful on us on that too.
Yeah, and so, like Randy said, we only used some of those steps. We didn't get all the way into it because this is a very, it's an initial study. It's really just meant to support other studies. So the thing that we kind of added on was our coding scheme. And so basically how we did that was before one of our meetings, went home and I read through the data. I read through the students' answers like 6 or 8 times. And I just wrote notes. I made notes. They said this a lot, they said this a lot, this a lot, this a lot. And as I was reading through it over and over again to kind of really get a sense of what the students were trying to say, I started putting them into categories. Well, these ones are all about this, and these ones are kind of all about this, and these ones are all about this. And it's funny because, this is my first actual research study. And so when I got back with Randy at the next meeting, I'm like, oh, I did this. He's like, oh, wow, you did all the coding. I'm like, oh, that's what I did. Like, that's involved in this is. I thought this was this huge process, and it was, but it wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it would be. It's really just you getting a good sense of the data and putting it into words. And so from that, we had about 10 different categories, and we talked about and worked them out and put them down into 5 different themes. So up here, these are the 5: continuum knowledge, ethics excellence, your impact or your career, your lifestyle and your worship, and the last one is observation. And so the things under each one are some of the kinds of things that students said that went into that category. So as students talked about things that were ongoing, so talked about their journey and how it was school-based and things like that, those, we kind of saw those as going together, and to kind of talked about your knowledge as a continuum. And the same for each of the other ones. And so, and something really important to mention is that being a qualitative study, that this is all just gray lines. It's really just our interpretation of the data at that time. And so this was, someone else would interpret the data differently. And so this is, like I said again, it's just support for other future data that can give more concrete results. But we still think that we found some really valuable information about the basic things that students were thinking about when they gave these answers. Do you have any comments or anything on this?
Yes, and also, if you look at the discussion guide I handed out, we're going to try to use at the end. It's a handout. Should be in there somewhere. All right, the discussion guide, we didn't, in our paper, we have the conceptual and operational definitions for each of these that we used then to do the rest of our analysis. It would have been too cumbersome to put them up here, but I put them in there so you have them to put with this to get a sense of, you're supposed to have a conceptual and operational definition to kind of measure things. And so this was kind of, we came up to define these things a little bit more than just these little areas.
Yeah, so those conceptual definitions for the video, so people, we also gave everyone conceptual definitions so that they can get a better idea of kind of what we're thinking about it. Yeah, so, right. So for me, this is the fun part. This was when we really got into the numbers of the data. So basically what we did is I used software called Atlas TI. There are a lot of different softwares. If you go, a lot of other ones, but this is just the one that I happen to choose. And so it is a coding software for qualitative data. So you can use videos, you can use magazine articles, you can put anything with text or images or anything like that into the software. And you, through your coding schemes that you develop, you put tags on different parts of the document. And so that in turn, the software puts all of those tags together and gives you numbers for it. So that's basically, this is a kind of a snippet of one of the numbers that it gave us. Just a quick note for the number of quotes from each theme by document. So let's see, spring 2013, they had 7 themes from continuum knowledge, yada, 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 down the line. And so I think it was really fun to do this. I'm a numbers girl, and so doing a qualitative study was weird for me. But I think it, as a social worker and as a researcher, I think it's really important to do research, even if it's not your thing, to kind of understand better how you can evaluate other things in your career and in your work. And so that's just kind of a basic idea of some of the numbers it gave us. And so let's put them into something that we can actually learn from. So this is the graph of all of the number of occurrences from each theme. So total. So as you can see, the lifestyle worship theme right there is significantly higher than all of the other ones. That across the board was true, that lifestyle worship was the strongest theme. And we think that is most likely a result of the culture here at Spring Arbor, that this is assignment on your faith and research or social work. And so, especially being at Spring Arbor, students talked about their faith a lot. They talked a lot about how their faith went into their career. The next, impact career, ethics excellence, and continuum knowledge were all kind of on the same level across the board. And observation on the end was the lowest, but it was still significant enough that we think it was valid to still include it as a theme. Something interesting that I want to mention is that, as you can see here, this blue line is the number of questions in each cohort, and the yellow line is the number of answers that students gave. So, or the numbers of themes within each of these. And so, as you can see, some cohorts talk a lot more than other ones. And so to compensate for that, with a lot of the data, what we did was to, from that original chart that I showed you with the numbers from each one, I then made that, turned it into a percentage of each document. So in spring 2014, the percentage of themes from that cohort that came from the lifestyle worship theme is shown on here. So this is kind of a chart that shows from those percentages how the numbers work out. And it is very similar to what it would be if I showed it as the straight numbers. But because there was such a difference in answers from different cohorts, this was kind of an important way to be able to not let some cohorts have too much of an influence on our final data. And as you can see from this one, it was pretty consistent across the board what answers were for each cohort. Some were outliers, obviously, but for the most part, they followed a very similar pattern. And so we found that interesting, and I think that is really significant that the students, something about their education or their past or their current situation of the assignment, something about it, influenced them to have similar answers, or that they just simply really do kind of have similar thoughts on it, all being social work students. That they do think about their career a lot, because you talk about your future career a lot in social work classes. It's experience-based rather than just knowledge-based. That observation is very important in research, but also in social work, being a keen observer to understand your situation. So we do wonder if that would be true in other cohorts in fields and things like that, but I think that for this one, I think that was really interesting. So the last little piece of data that I want to talk about a little bit more is talking about the demographics of each group. That this is the gender of each student from each cohort, which isn't necessarily surprising considering social work. Much more females in the cohort than there were men, but we didn't necessarily see that had a big influence. The cohort that had the most answers, if you remember back to that one where it showed how many answers each one had, that big spike, that was all women in that cohort. So, but it isn't statistically significant because our group as a whole is so small. But I still found that interesting. Wonder if that really was an influencer or not. And as Randy said, our demographic was all sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and predominantly juniors. So we think that
Over half of it.
Yeah.
So they were way.
Yeah, that they're more than half of the total students were juniors. And so we think that may have had an impact. Again, it's not a statistically significant impact because the group is so small as a whole, but we do wonder if that had an impact. That students had already, in the least, they had already gone through several years at Spring Arbor Christian University doing assignments like this. And so if, students at a different school or students who hadn't been in the school as long, if they would have given the same answers or not, they would have had that same focus on the lifestyle worship.
Okay. It's
It's important to let everyone know, the validity, reliability, and some of the limitations that occur. Because as when I taught this class, and Hannah can probably attest to this, I kept talking to the students about how important it is for us to be honest, have good integrity, and do things that have some validity to them and reliability as we discussed it. So this particular study had internal validity, which means there's a match-up, and why that happens is because we can match up the conceptual and operational definitions I showed you in there. And more specifically, if you look at the validities that are talked about, we have content validity, which allows for the extent to which the measure reflects what you're trying to measure. And that's about as far as we can go with it. I mean, there's other types of validity. Our reliability is there, but it's very limited because reliability kind of looks at, generalizes to other populations. And I know this is kind of with this population, but if you went to other studies and came up with other samples, you could figure out your own reliability. And the idea of reliability is that you could do this information again, and it would be valuable to use. And that's kind of what we found, that we think these themes we've come up with will allow you to have the opportunity to use them again, because in Neuendorf, she talked about this particular sentence: in relation to content analysis and reliability, the measure is not valuable if it can only be conducted once or by one particular person. Individuals could take our themes and do this, so that's what I'm saying. It's not going to be an issue. It is good that we at least have that ability to do it again. And on the limitations, we basically came up to that of course, it is self-reporting. You can do the assignment, and we talked about it in class. There's a consensus there, but it's all the self-reporting that occurs in the classroom setting. So, and it may or may not be reality out there. Also, another limitation was, the limited generalizability I just talked about. And then the other one was, that of course, this the ethnicity and gender. The majority of the sample was female, so we have to be careful to, as Hannah was just saying, it's hard to go beyond the sample we have to apply this to others, but we can take the themes we came up with and do that. One of the strengths of the research design, and we just wanted to add this because we thought it was important, is there's consistency in the way this was implemented over and over again. I basically implemented the same in every class, maybe not exactly every little detail, but I kind of had the same procedure in every class to be able to do this, so it was kind of credible.
Yeah, and as you can see from the answer documents, or from the questionnaires that you guys have, from what the original assignment was, all but one cohort had the exact same one. And that first cohort, when I really kind of dug into the questions to see how different they were, and they had almost identical themes in the questions. The questions were almost the same, and even though there was a smaller number of questions for the first cohort, the themes in those questions matched up almost perfectly with those of the later cohort. So that's why we still included that.
All right, and in your handout, that's Appendix 2. That's the one in Appendix.
Appendix A1 and Appendix A2. A2 is the first cohort, so that was slightly smaller. Some of the other questions.
And to be credible, we want to let you know that we thought it was good, but we want to make sure it wasn't exactly the same amount.
All right, you want to get into this individual already?
I think this thing is significant because it begins to explore themes and factors that relate to the impact and integration of faith and learning that are provided by the students themselves. And then these themes can be used to outline even more specific indicators of IFL, or integration of faith and learning. And we think that in future research, you can take these 5 themes and they have some usefulness and utility for future research because they have some reasonably good numbers that we came up with that they appear. And there are some great benefits in this, in that students can benefit more in their professional development and academic knowledge that they gain. And then also the other benefit is they can help professors to see how these themes can be applied, maybe even to change the assignment for future reference or whatever, depending on what we think after we look at these things, maybe to get at these themes more or something like that. And it can help us to have, as professors, have strategies that are better to help you to get what you need to get out of something like this.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned a little earlier, the second point is really important. The benefits of these kinds of experience for students. That even though it may not have been perceived by students, that we still believe there's a lot of benefit here for students. And so that's why it's so important to learn more about it so that we can, so the educators and in other fields as well, well, that we can better integrate Christianity into what we're doing, do that more effectively. All right, so during those activities, we're gonna leave those up there so that you guys can have a reminder of some of the things that we were talking about in each theme. But what we're gonna do next is a group discussion. It wouldn't be a Randy Baxter presentation if there wasn't some group work involved. So the big question that we're kind of wanting you guys to noodle on while you're doing this is, how does this information apply to your field? It obviously integrates into education, but as a social worker, how do you think it integrates into your education as well as the fields that you want to go into? And the same for our other guests, that what ways do you think this information about integrated Christianity can be used? From the initial assignment documents, everyone has a copy of those. We had literally into two groups, and they kind of discussed the first question and the last question. The last question being, we started talking a little bit earlier about how we can apply this in the future, how this applies to different fields. So, I guess I'll have the first group.
It's all Jenna.
All right, Jenna.
Have to class.
All right, Jenna.
Okay, so we kind of combined number 1 and 7, we just did one big answer that kind of applies to both. But we talked about how using what you learn in research and kind of the general aspects you go into it, like receiving different perspectives, different ethics, you can use that in applying your faith when you're working with other people who don't have the same ideas or the same perspectives, especially in like your future careers. If maybe your faith is something you can outwardly express, you can learn how to do that in different ways and share it in the past.
Awesome, thank you. All right, who's a spokesperson?
I was volunteered. So basically, for question number 1, we were basically just saying that faith relates to research in the sense of it being like a ministry opportunity, in the sense of it can be something that people have heard before or haven't heard before. And so you have to be careful when using a faith-based like research approach in the sense of it possibly coming across as biased, but also giving enough background information for people who don't have a faith background for them to understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, having the cultural competency with the kids. And then you guys have any thoughts on question 7? Or?
That was more Dr. Rupert's for that answer.
I was only making the point that
He uses
I was only making the point that Christianity has a distinctive feature of being a fact-based religion, and therefore is very open to research and verification of faith claims and propositional truth, whereas there are other traditions that don't rely on that sort of thing, and therefore research doesn't even intersect in the faith position.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think you guys all made really important points. Those are some of the same points that students made when they filled out as well. And so hopefully this gave you a little, some more food for thought, thinking about being in Christian education, kind of thinking about that a little bit more, actually contemplating, how your faith has been integrated into your education, or how as educators you can continue to implement that into education.
Basically, what the genesis of this whole assignment, when I
Had given it for so long, it's kind of what somebody said right over here today.
But the other thing I always notice in research and our profession looking at the code of ethics. The code of ethics, if you look at it, is basically has a lot of the same Christian principles that we are supposed to do: integrity, dignity and worth of a person, and so forth. So to me, the ethics and the whole idea, especially in research and doing the good research, it just kind of, I think they kind of complement each other. I think sometimes people, I think there's a disconnect between the two. but there are some connections. They're not exactly the same, but they sure offer, and I think it enhances the code of ethics, which I practiced all my career, by being a Christian and doing it even better. I mean, I'm doing it even more effectively than we could.
Brady just wants to read our conclusion statement at the end of our paper, just really kind of wrapping up some of our thoughts and what we're thinking for kind of the future. What researchers especially can take away.
Here's what we said at the end of our paper. Well, this project was an exploratory study, which it was. We kind of said that. Designed to find ideas that would foster more concrete future research. The 5 themes that were developed from the data appear to have general support with the study and their utility as salient IFL, integration of faith and learning indicators. These themes and indicators used in the future allow for potential valid and reliable research results. The researchers recommend this consideration of a more quantitative approach, and that's that appendix I was telling you about that Neuendorfer put out. And this would allow for more concrete measurement of the probable impact of this. We didn't measure the impact, but we sure would like to. What type of actual, quantitative impact does it have? And we thought that would be very helpful to the educational profession and the students. And so that's pretty much our conclusion. We don't want to go much as you're learning. We don't want to go way beyond the data we have to give a bunch of stuff that doesn't actually go with the data. But at least we found out that these are good themes that could be used if you want to dig deeper.
Absolutely, yeah. Being an initial study, we don't want to say too much. It's all just preliminary data, and it comes from our interpretation. So, like you said earlier, it's a lot of gray lines, but hopefully it can be information to foster future research, or even in the least, kind of spark some ideas in people's minds. All of you being involved in Christian education to some extent at this point. Before we end, there's our contact information if you have any questions or anything like that. And if you want a copy of our full paper, it'll be the conference proceedings is for next week. But if you want a copy of the paper, we are happy to give it to you.
Yes, and I actually am making it the paper available to Sarah, so Sarah can be a resource too if you want to ask her for it. She's going to even help us to fine tune it as her expertise. If we want to send out the publication or something. So thank you very much. We're really thrilled you were here.
Yes. Yeah. Any questions?
Can I ask a question which may say goes beyond the data? But I was struck by the high point being around worship and lifestyle, whereas the impact on careers and things like that was sort of middling. So my question would be, I'm saying it's middling only in comparison to the lifestyle.
Right.
So my question would be, would you expect the faith integration emphasis to vary based on, for example, the educational institution where you did a survey?
Absolutely. That's what I was trying to say at the end. You can use this and you can go to different samples in different places with different emphasis. Maybe some other place, if you're seeing that integration. Or you could create a different assignment, or you could create a different questionnaire or something maybe around these themes that would fit the sample you're going to. That's an excellent question.
Because admittedly you were using research classes, so
Yes.
this wouldn't apply, but it would be interesting to see, for example, if a parameter like this varied over the career of the student in college.
Absolutely.
Does it change from the time they're freshman to the time they're senior?
Yes. Oh, there's all kinds of possibilities. That's a very good, I'm glad you brought that, it was very helpful.
Yeah, and I think too that depending on which sector you're looking at and which department you're looking at, I think they could vary widely as well. That lifestyle worship, if I had to guess, of course, it's my own opinion, I would guess it wouldn't be nearly as high if it was at a public university. That because of the Christian focus here, I think that had a big impact on it. I think it would still, people's faith or their idea of having a calling in their profession is common, but specifically focusing on it to this degree, I think, I don't know if it would be quite as high in a different institution.
And the other thing we kind of say that we maybe didn't emphasize is that's very high, but the other ones are pretty consistent with each other, numbers-wise. So I think they have a viable, kind of a viability. Observation is down a little bit, but that can also be related to the way we defined it too. There's all different factors. But those other ones were so close to each other that even though that one was high, I thought there was a lot of a viability in the fact that they were about the same numbers.
There's another hypothesis that one might want to test is that for persons in secondary institution, the only impact of inspiration of faith being lifestyle and worship, and it might be very well in other.
Yes, that's an excellent point. Yes, we had talked about different ideas like that, so.
Talked about different ideas like that, so I'm glad you brought that up, because there's so many different ways you could go with this. But at least we have kind of built a little foundation to move on with some credibility to try to pull something else off, depending on whether it's a research project you want to do.
Yep. Any quick questions? We're about at time, but okay, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.